evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Dominic Carter in for Richard French. We have a huge show for you. Big stories, big names, big week. Tonight we're going long with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Tomorrow night, an extended interview with NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton. And a little later in the show tonight, the huge Supreme Court ruling that upholds Obamacare. We'll talk about the practical and the political ramifications. But first, our wide-ranging interview with Reverend Sharpton. You will hear him like you've never heard him before on Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, the Confederate flag, the Charleston church shooting. Everything is fair game. Everything is on the table. But we start with the continuing controversy over President Obama using the N-word. Sharpton, a strong ally of the president, is defending him.
I think when I first heard he used it, I was surprised because he has said we shouldn't use it. When I read what he said, he really reinforced what we've been saying. He said just because you stop using the N-word, but he said the word, doesn't mean racism is over, which reinforced that the N-word is a racist word. He did not say yo N or say I'm taking the power out of it. He made the N-word the race word, and just because you stop using it doesn't mean racism is over. In many ways, it reinforces what we said, that that word is a racist term. And by him saying, just because you stop using a racist term don't mean racism is over, is to reinforce our definition of the N-word, where others are trying to say the N-word doesn't mean racism no more. He, in the context of his sentence, he established and affirmed that it does mean racism, and people stop using it to say, I'm not racist no more.
But Reverend Sharpton, can you imagine if another president of the United States had used that word? I mean, my God, there would be calls for impeachment.
Because you never had another black president. I'm sure if Hillary Clinton gets elected, she could say things about women dyeing their hair that nobody else could say. Imagine if a man had talked about women dyeing their hair. So the fact he is black and he has been the target of racism, he could define what racism is or isn't. Just like I'm sure if Mrs. Clinton wins, she could deal with pushing the envelope on gender bias and on and on and on.
But in 30 years, and I've been around you in personal circles a lot, I have never heard you use that word, and you have chastised rappers for using that word.
But rappers didn't use the word in that context. If I would choose, I would want nobody to use it in any context. But I can't say in the context he used it is what we've been protesting. I can say that I don't like to see or hear the use of the word. I've used it years ago. I don't use it anymore at all. But I can't say the context in which he used it violates what we are protesting. But my preference is nobody use it at all.
In our time, and I know you've already been down to South Carolina on this issue. You were down there on the police shooting, and you were down there on this latest one. In our time, most of us remember Birmingham, Alabama. September 1963, the 4 little girls that died in the church bombing, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. But now we have South Carolina. Reverend Sharpton, what was your initial reaction when you heard what had happened?
You know, that very morning, I'd been in Washington witnessing the installation ceremony of Loretta Lynch. And I'm sitting there in the front, watching the first black president swearing in the first black woman attorney general, presided over by the first Latino Supreme Court Justice, Sonia Sotomayor, holding Frederick Douglass' Bible. I said, don't get no better than this. Fly back to New York, come by National Action Network, go do my radio show, my TV show, go home, and Reverend Nelson Rivers, who leads National Action Network in South Carolina, calls and tells me Reverend Pinckney had been killed in his church and 8 others an hour ago, all in one day. So in the morning, I'm looking at Loretta Lynch and President Obama, how far we've come, and that night, how far we yet to go. And Dominic, it's worse than Birmingham, and I'm gonna tell you why. In Birmingham, there was a movement going on for civil rights and voting rights. People were marching. There was nothing going on. This kid decided, not reacting to a movement, not reacting to march, he decided that he was going to have a massacre and start a race war. There was no emotional reaction to some activity in town. This was a cold-blooded massacre by an urban terrorist or domestic terrorist.
Is the black church, Reverend Sharpton, in your opinion, under attack?
I think the black church is under attack and has always been the symbol of our community, because that is where our freedom fighting, our civil rights fighting, our pursuit of empowerment always came out of the church. Isn't it interesting, this young boy, 21 years old, studied Rhodesia, because when he was born, it was not Rhodesia, it was Zimbabwe. He had to study that. Study apartheid South Africa. When he was born, Mandela was being elected to South Africa. So maybe he studied that the basic backbone of the black struggle was the black church. He went to the church that Denmark Vesey founded. So maybe he knew exactly what he was doing, because he certainly had to study white supremacy in order to come up with Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa.
Governor Haley in South Carolina, Republican. Does she deserve credit, Reverend Sharpton, for calling for the flag to be taken down from the State House?
I think that when you look at the fact she defended that flag for so many years, and others defended it for so many years, a flag that not only represents racism and slavery and lynching, but a flag that represents a rebellion against the country. It's a flag of treason. They defended it. And you're going to tell me it takes 9 innocent people to die in Bible class for you to change your mind? I think that I'm glad that we take it down. But if I don't show up at the celebration party, it's because 150 years after the Civil War, we're going to thank you for taking down the flag of the people that were defeated for tearing up the country over us? I mean, really? And you want me to pop the champagne? They lost the Civil War, Governor Haley.
Reverend Sharpton, in just a few hours, you will be back in South Carolina and Charleston, and the President Obama, is delivering the eulogy. How do you feel as of right now, what's gone on in South Carolina?
I feel it's a wake-up call. I feel it's telling us that if we don't really make some fundamental changes that will tell people we can't make you love everybody, but you're going to pay the ultimate price if you execute your hateful feelings. If we don't do that, then I think that we're going to go from incident to incident. And the irony is that, you know, people said when President Obama was elected, well, we don't need activists like Al Sharpton anymore. I ended up being closer to him than I've been to any president. And he's come and related to us openly, both in the White House and come to our conventions. Then they said, well, we don't know if we need national organizations. Well, we're the only thing that's been involved in Staten Island, Ferguson, Baltimore, Charleston twice, all the way through. So I think that all of the excuses are over now. People need to get involved, or we're going to continue to see these things happen.
In private, did you get emotional about what happened in South Carolina?
Very emotional. It hit home because the last time I was in Charleston, Reverend Pinckney did the prayer vigil I had at the site where Walter Scott was shot in the back by police on videotape. Now I'm going back. I went back Thursday and stood there with the scene that he was killed, and he prayed at the other scene. The fact that I knew him, I met him when I was running for president. He was a young man in his 20s, just getting elected to the state legislature. I'd met 2 of the other victims. It hit home because this is not even police. This are not young black males in the street. You're talking about an 87-year-old woman in Bible class. We can't go to Bible class and be beyond this. And the chilling thing is, what happens in any of our churches or our rallies? And what happens if a copycat says that's a good idea? All of this goes through your head. Me, as visible as I am, I wake up every morning, Dominic, understanding that there are people in America that wish I didn't wake up. To have to wake up knowing the hate against you personally, as well as your people every morning, and keep fighting anyway. People act like this is celebrity. This is celebrity. That boy represents to me the risk we face every day. And if we don't start taking that seriously, this country's gonna go all the way backwards.
Up next, Sharpton on de Blasio, Hillary, Trump, Jeb Bush, and a lot more.